Good morning, friends. My name is Eli Sachs. I'm the director of the program in Jewish Studies at the University of Colorado Boulder. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar on traditional klezmer music. As many of you know, this gathering is the second program in our 2021-2022 Peak to Peak series. This is an initiative that creates conversations between CU Boulder on the one hand and audiences and communities across Colorado and beyond on the other. It's supported by CU's Office for Outreach and Engagement, and it's a partnership with communities and civic organizations across Colorado. And I just want to begin today's program by thanking those communities: the Corazon de Trinidad Creative District, the Garfield Public Library District, the Trinidad Carnegie Public Library, Western Colorado University, the Aspen Jewish Congregation, the Boulder JCC, Kavod on the Road, and Temple Aaron in Trinidad. We're so deeply grateful for your partnership. Now, in a moment, I'm going to introduce you to Professor Yonatan Malin, who will kind of be our master of ceremonies for this morning's program. But before I do so, I want to acknowledge two key supporters of this event. So first, this webinar is supported by the Roser Visiting Artist Program in the College of Music here at CU Boulder. One of the real privileges, one of the real joys of being part of an institution like CU is having the opportunity to collaborate with colleagues from across the arts and humanities. And we're so very grateful to the Roser program and to the College of Music for their partnership and support. Second, this webinar is supported by the David Schneer Fund for Community Programming, Public Scholarship in the Arts here in the program in Jewish Studies. As many of you know, this fund honors the memory of our friend and colleague, Professor David Schneer, who is a passionate believer in the importance of fostering conversations and collaborations between scholars, artists, and the broader public. So now I'm going to turn things over to this morning's guide, Professor Yonatan Malin. He's an associate professor of music theory and Jewish studies here at CU Boulder. And his research areas include klezmer, Jewish liturgical music, cantillation, and German song. He teaches the popular class, Music in Jewish Cultures, every other year, and he's contributed to musical programs and workshops across the world. He teaches a wide variety of undergraduate and graduate courses in the College of Music, beyond that Jewish music class, and his book, Songs in Motion, Rhythm and Meter in the German Lied, was published in 2010 by Oxford University Press. He's also served as the editor of Music Theory Online, which is the journal of the Society for Music Theory. Please join me in welcoming my friend and colleague, Yonatan Malin.
Thank you so much, Eli. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for this program with two fantastic klezmer musicians, Segelstein and Josh Horowitz. So what we're going to do, we're going to alternate performance and discussion through the next 50 minutes or so, and we'll have time for questions from all of you. So if you have a question during the program, please post it in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So not the chat, but the Q&A. And you can post questions anytime. They'll come to me and I'll moderate. And so I'm not going to give extensive bios of our musicians. You can read their bios in the event announcement, but I thought it'd be helpful to just mention a couple things. Joshua Horowitz and Cookie Segelstein are founding members of the trio Veretski Pass. And I think Eli will put the link to their website in the chat. The name Veretski Pass comes from a mountain pass that is in the western part of what is now Ukraine, near the borders of Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania. And it's a region where Jewish music was constantly in dialogue with other folk traditions. So there's a lot more to say, but really what you need to know is that this is Eastern European Jewish music played in a traditional manner based on research and family heritage. And it's also just completely radical, so beautiful, and so much fun. So please join me in welcoming Cookie Segelstein on violin and Joshua Horowitz on accordion and cymbal. Thank you. Well, that's so wonderful. I'm going to start. Could you first just tell us a little bit about what that was that you were just playing?
Sure. We started with a doina. I think you might have explained that in one of your classes. Typically, this type of doina is played in Romania. It's a Romanian word meaning song, basically, but there are lots of different kinds. This one, especially kind of a lament. It's a shepherd song, typically in the shepherd mode, which is the flute mode, the talinka that was played in Romania. And then we followed it by a dobro den, a piece of greeting, which typically in West Ukraine in Jewish music was done in three, in the meter of three. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And this is meant to escort the in-laws and the guests from one place to another in the wedding.
A lot of the construction of the tunes we play come from the fact that they were functional pieces in traditional life in Eastern Europe. They were meant to kind of support the wedding, and because when Jewish music was forced out of temple worship after the destruction of the Second Temple, when the rabbis declared the Jewish people to be in a state of mourning in which there was no music to be played, it transformed into basically wedding music. So a lot of the forms that we're playing were meant to help the wedding function, and the wedding was not 4 hours, it was 7 days. So escorting guests from celebration to celebration, there would be one for every night. There would be one for 7 nights, one for each of the 7 blessings that's in the Jewish wedding. And you would be expected as a community member, if you were close to the family, to host. You might host the 4th night, you might host the 3rd night. So guests were oftentimes being escorted places.
Yeah, it was like the whole town was on holiday, right? For that whole period, was for that wedding period. Yeah.
Right.
Wonderful. Yeah. So let's hear your next piece.
The Wanderers.
So why don't you tell them what we're going to do?
Oh, so this is kind of a parallel song that's played at Ukrainian weddings. This one's called Song of the Wanderer, and it's an actual song, but played also instrumentally. So I'm going to be using the cymbal for that. This is the hammered dulcimer, if you know the name, like Ephraim Cymbalist. For those of you who are familiar with the television show back in the 70s, Ephraim Cymbalist, the name
FBI, I think it was FBI,
right,
yeah.
That name comes from the occupation of playing this instrument, this one has 105 strings. Spend half our lives tuning and the other half playing out of tune. But so this is a tune that's played by Hutsul minorities, or rather ethnicities, not minorities, in the Carpathian Mountains. So this is kind of the parallel to the doina that we were playing from Romania.
And this will be in a slightly different style. This won't be in the kind of the Romanian mixed with Jewish style. This will be really much more in a rural Ukrainian style.
In this case, we'll both be playing the melody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's so cool. I specifically, just to let everyone know, I specifically asked Josh if he would also play cymbal for this concert so that we could hear it. Because when you guys were here 2 years ago in Boulder, obviously you couldn't bring the cymbal, but here we can hear it. Where did you get this instrument, and how did you start playing it?
The first one that I had made, I observed different old manuscripts of cymbals dealing with Jewish and other regions of the cymbal, and so I went through a couple of different designs, had a German maker make my first one, which was basically on the lap, and then from his instrument we saw that it worked tension wise. I brought the plans to a Hungarian maker in Budapest. There are only 2 really left now, and he made this instrument for me. So I had devised the tuning based on historic models of Jewish, but kind of devised my own alterations, which people always did.
Yeah. So I want to ask something else, and this is like, might be completely obvious, but you're not playing from music.
Right.
And so tell us about that. What is the relationship between what you play and, whatever the sources are?
Well, it's like the game that we used to play as a child called Operator, where you'd whisper something to somebody and they'd whisper it to somebody else. You go around the circle. By the time it gets to the last person, it's probably changed a lot because of the way people hear it. So this kind of makes this music that is learned aurally, A-U-R-A-L-L-Y, I think that's the spelling, very dynamic. You get different versions of the same tune. Matter of fact, I think I played a little different ending. It's mostly because I forgot. But what it allows us to do, just kind of technically speaking, it allows us to make decisions on the fly. If I want to change something, if I want to end something sooner, I'll raise an eyebrow to Josh, and he'll know something's going to happen. He may not know what, but that's very typical of traditional music all over the place. As a matter of fact, I tell my violin students that I teach classically. I'm classically trained, obviously, and I make them learn by ear also, because I tell them that most of the musicians in this world are not note readers. They're learning from their families. They're learning from mentors. They're learning by just playing with other people, and it's a skill and it's a joy, really, to be able to just show up with your instrument and play or learn on the spot. And it's a whole different way for classical players to learn. But on the other hand, traditional musicians, the idea of putting a piece of music in front of them would be frightening for a lot of them.
Plus, so much of the music is dance music, and on the dance floor you have to go from one song to the next and respond to what's happening there, going slower, going faster, responding to the dance leader. So it's usually somebody that gives hand signals about what to do, go faster, go slower, change to a hora, to a freilich, whatever. And you just have to be able to adapt instantaneously to that. Yeah.
It also allows for a certain amount of what we love to do, and not necessarily what you would think of as improvisation like in jazz, but small improv areas, the cadences. We can change the cadences on the fly. We can change a melodic direction for a small snippet on the fly. And it becomes, I think, not being a scientist, I think it's a different part of the brain, because you're really constantly, it's very fluid. So you're not, I mean, if someone puts a piece of music in front of me, I will play that music. Yeah. But if I know the tune by memory or by ear, then I'm constantly kind of going in and out of the last version I played. So.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. So just a couple of quick things I forgot to say earlier, and then we'll get to the next piece. I forgot to mention that the music that was playing as people were joining was from Veretski's Pass debut album, 2004. And you can look at, I think Eli will put the link to your website for us. And I also I see a couple questions coming in. So if people do have questions as we're continuing, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A. And love to hear your next tune.
Sure. And then let's go into the, can we do, excuse me, talk amongst yourself.
What it is, but that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a piece where, in this case, we'll hear the cymbal in an accompanying role, and the violin is in the lead.
And this would be a medium, this is a chassidal tempo. Chassidal means little chassid, and it would be something that would be a little bit of a slower tempo for maybe the rabbi to dance in the wedding, and then we're just going to put a little chaser on the end of it. Okay.
It was hard for me to stay in my seat there.
I know, it's such a simple tune. That last fast part is comes from a Yiddish song, Alla Inenim, which means all together. And it was it was in our last record before the pandemic, based on the collections of Sophia Magid. And this was from a collection that she actually recorded some violin players. I think it was a group of 3 brothers.
There was a woman in there as well.
Oh, there's a woman. Yeah. It was 3 siblings, was it?
3 siblings, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a woman in there. I have to check.
Yeah, and they did an instrumental version of that. And you know, I know we were talking about our sources, but what was interesting to me about that is that we really, you know, there's melody, and then there's improvisation of the melodic line, and then there's accompaniment. And we've been teaching the violin accompaniment a certain way, and in hearing these wax cylinder recordings that had been digitized, to hearing the way that in this part of the Ukraine, which is very close to Veretski actually, where she, not too far from that area, the way that the fiddle players accompanied each other was completely different than I have been teaching it for 30 years, so it kind of blew the top of my head off.
But they were also amateur musicians, and we know that there's a difference between the way that, you know, amateurs played and professionals played too.
And you know, in folk styles, you're oftentimes looking for the non-classical people who aren't trying to clean it up, but the way it was played, quote unquote, back home. So it was really vital. I mean, just amazing for me. I'm so excited about it to hear that. We've been teaching, and they played up in the higher register with longer, more of a Hungarian style in a way of accompanying.
That's great. Yeah. I think rather than talk more, I have more questions, but maybe we'll go on to the next tune, and then we'll come back to some more questions.
The Kozak thing, the accordion thingy going into the Polish things.
Sure.
Okay. Just, we'll not make it too simple. Oh, what is this? So, okay.
That's not there?
I don't usually play. Just go on to the next part.
That went from Ukraine to Poland in an instant.
Yeah, yeah.
The doina, and I realized I don't. Stu usually accompanies him, and I'm not a harmony.
I started to play a different type of doina than the first one. It kind of starts more happy rather than the lament doina, but it goes dark at a certain point.
Yeah,
and that's how we always started that. And I remembered she didn't want.
I didn't. So I was going, call out the chords, call out the chords. But I didn't hear it.
Yeah. So Stu Brotman is the bass player that you play with in the trio, and
Right.
so he's often with you on that. Yeah. So great. So that was a whole medley. There were 3 different tunes, right? Yeah. Can you walk us through them? Yeah. Oh, the doina in the beginning, and then.
Yeah, which I cut very short.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the classic setup in the recording industry. That when things started to get recording around the turn of the 20th century, typically you would find a doina, the slow, unmetered kind of thing, going into a hora, which we didn't play, and then after that a fast tune. So it's like medium, slow, medium, fast. Mm-hmm. And so we went from the fast tune into another couple of Polish fast tunes, as if we were playing on a dance floor for people, and the Poles walked in.
Well, the idea about the first after the doina, it was taken from the source of I think it was from Idelson, right?
Yeah, Idelson. It was notated. We got that from.
That was notated, but there was something that we considered to be maybe a mistake, but we kept it in.
That mode. That Lydian mode.
Yeah, we loved it. So, and the other thing we did with that one is we switched around the sections. So I know we had talked a little bit about how we handle traditional source material. So in that one, we definitely switched around some of the sections. Then we decided that Stuart and I would play a B-flat drone. And he would do a very free type of improvisation, taksim, which is it Arabic or Turkish?
Yeah, it's an Arabic term for improvisation, kind of similar to doinas, but they're based more on the mode or makam. So they coming in the middle of this is a Romanian tradition as well, where you're playing a tune and then it slips over into an unmetered section, a solo, and then goes back, and it happens in Greek traditions as well, taksims.
So we decided that one, and then we wanted to interrupt it with something that, emotionally or dance-wise felt good, but style-wise very different. So we took 2 small polkas, and one very, very short, and I mean those almost sound like old-time dance tunes. And so we made that into a medley, but both they're two little polkas. One is just almost an A section. The other one has an A, B, A, B, C. So that's kind of how we did that one.
Mm-hmm. It's a real meeting place between cultures, right? I mean, that's so much of what you do is, bringing in all the different cultures that were present all at the same time there, right? Yeah. That's beautiful. I just want to ask go ahead.
No, I'll just say real quickly, what's interesting is that, yes, the musicians, the traveling musicians were oftentimes, depending on which part of, the area, which area they were mixed. I mean, in my father's town in Veretski, there was a Jewish leader. Mendel Haskell was the fiddler. He was a Jewish fiddler, but he oftentimes had what my father called gypsies, which, we now, I guess we don't use that term much anymore, but I'm too old to remember all of them. But so gypsies, a Hungarian bass player, Ukrainian trumpet player sometimes. So it was common, those musicians knew how to play each of those cultural, styles. But the actual traditions, the actual peoples did not really mix. So you would not have really had, yes, maybe in Poland you would have had some polkas played, but it's not like the Poles and the Jews always danced together. They would have been very segregated.
Right. That's great context. That helps. We actually had a question from someone in the audience about, can you tell apart the different styles, or is it a different style of playing? And
I'll give you a short example.
Perfect.
Because the Polish accordions typically, and this is, accordions really have only been around for about 150 years, but I mean since the 1830s. Poles,
Almost 200 years.
yeah, 200 years, okay, that's true. They typically only have major chords that they can play in the left hand. And so even if you have a minor type of melody, you might have a major chord. That happens also in the area of Marmurish, which was an area that Bartók was very familiar with. And when you hear those minor major mixes in Bartók's music, it's because of the zhangura, the guitar that's played to accompany that style is tuned in a major key, even when the thing is in minor. So Bartók took that as a major minor mix. But we have the same thing in Poland because of the accordion construction. Play that.
How does it go?
You know what that Polish thing in A. Yeah.
That one?
This one, for instance,
Okay.
starts in major. That chord right there.
So I'm playing A minor.
Normally you play a
Playing a
minor chord there, but I play a major chord, so it's a major mix against that. So play that again, and it gives a really rough, little bit of rougher sound. I wouldn't do that in Jewish, but you know, so that's a crass difference right there. Very.
Yeah, it goes by so fast, but it's like this really interesting moment of, you know, really bite. Yeah, beautiful. All right, let's go on to your next tune.
You want to do the Tatar dance?
Sure. Similar to
one-
what we just did.
This is well, we'll play it first and we'll tell you about it.
A very widespread dance that was played. Jews, Crimean Tatars, Romanians, Ukrainians, everybody played this tune. And it's on lot of
A version
recordings.
of it, yeah. Different version, okay.
I put a little Viennese thing in there. Just for fun.
That's so
That's the
great.
joy of not having music in front of you.
Right.
I never know. I mean, I've known Josh for almost 20 years. I still never know what he's going to do.
Well, mostly because I don't know what I'm going to do. Can't do it.
Yeah, that's so great. And you have this thing that you do. I was going to ask you about this, but this was a perfect example of where you're playing the same tune at the same time, but not exactly the same. I think you call it messy unison, right? And so, like, how did you develop that? And I think it also relates to the aesthetics of Jewish prayer, right? And that people are, praying, davening at the same time in the same space, but in their own time also. And
that's our excuse, right?
That's your excuse. Yeah.
Because it can range from just kind of playing whatever the heck we want to do, and then to intentional effects.
Let's do a little bit of that melody, just slowly,
Okay.
because we do it a little differently, don't we?
We do, and this is like
We'll just
We
do the
divide
unison.
ornamentation into macro and micro, and when we change the actual notes, that's macro ornamentation. But when we change the inflection, that's kind of the micro ornamentation. So if we go, you know, I might, that would be like a nuance. But if I go, that's more macro, like where we're changing the actual shape of it. But yeah,
Which part do you want to do? The very beginning?
Sure.
Okay, we'll just do just the unison.
We'll do it together as a unison and then
I don't know
split
if
it
we
up.
can we do that though?
I'll try it. I'll do
Okay,
it.
here we go.
Good. I'm glad that I know what you're doing. Okay, so we might do it like this.
Okay. Or we might do this one more time.
That's
Same
so good.
melody, kinda.
Yeah.
Playing
Yeah.
in different ways, just like you said, Yonatan.
Yeah, and that comes partly from the recordings, right? That's what you hear on some of the recordings,
You know,
on
yeah.
the old recordings.
Some of the more raucous ones, especially we got the idea first and foremost from the Belf recordings. These early recordings were done between 1911, 1914 of this ensemble where you could hear the violin doing slurpy things, but the clarinet is doing other ornaments. And you can hear it there, but as we get into the more commercial recordings, even in the early period with the larger ensembles, we do hear it, and some people tweak, you know, doing little things, little touches here and there. But as the ensemble gets bigger, you hear kind of less of it in a way, because they're more arranged, and a lot of them were actual arrangements that they were playing from. But we kind of assume also, based on other East European styles, rural styles especially, that there's a lot more heterophony of this messy unison playing than we now have today with our kind of cleaned up aesthetic of the recording industry.
And the original recording that we took this tune from was provided to us by Dr. Martin Schwartz, and it's a recording of a Crimean Tatar orchestra. And it's much slower and it's very homogeneous. So they do it about, and it's very clean. So, you know, we just we applied our own style, and we do that with anything that we take. We have a way of playing together. We've been together as a group 19 years, so we kind of know each other very well, and we don't even discuss anything. We don't say, you play it this way, I'll play it this way. That's just how we do it. So.
Yeah, and sometimes it's very dissonant. You know, and I think when we teach our students kind of what dissonance is in music, that, you know, we have such an idea that things have to match, the harmonies have to match the melody, and it's kind of like, okay, that's great, that works, but in dissonance is emotion, and his movement is also, there's like physical movement that's involved in dissonant playing, and you know, you need resolution as well, but the more dissonance that you have, the more emotional the music's going to be, and the more dancey it's going to be, even if it's messy.
Yeah.
So there's that kind of principle that, I mean, in some ways has been lost in our modern society in this music, but people are reviving it too. Yeah.
So there's a bunch of, thank you so much, that's good. There's a bunch of questions that have come in. I wonder if we can do like a series of really quick ones and then finish with one more tune. Will that work for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
About the cymbal, two things about the cymbal. One of my students noticed that it's very complicated and delicate, and asked, you know, who in the village would have something like this and who got to play and learn it. And also another student was asking, how is it actually physically organized? How are the notes organized on the cymbal?
Great question, both of them. So this is a mid-sized concert cymbal that actually has legs and a pedal. You wouldn't travel with this instrument for a wedding. The way, if you look at old pictures of the cigarette sellers at movies and things like that you see where they hang the tray around their neck, that's how this instrument is typically played at weddings, so that you can walk around. You need to be mobile at a wedding. Therefore, you can see all the mobile instruments were fair game for a wedding. That's what people played. So the cymbal, it's an occupation. There is a cymbalist, and they normally were the kind of the backbone of the Yiddish quartet. They would say the Jewish quartet or the Jewish trio, because they provide very much rhythm and percussion, but can also participate in the melody. So it's a facile instrument that way. But they tended to be much smaller. This is a bit large, mid-sized ones. There are big ones. So that's the answer to the first question, I think. And the second question is how it's tuned. This one I do a linear tuning. So it has bridges. Typically the middle range of it is, there's a bridge here that splits it into a perfect fifth. So if I play a C here, I have a G over here on that side. C sharp, G sharp, thank you. So these are tuned, but they go up in mine, it goes up chromatically on the right side. And on the bottom, it goes left to right, chromatically up. And then it continues up on the right side chromatically. Can you see that? And then up here, left side of the bridge. Then there's another bridge up here that makes this go crosswise. Left, right, left, right, left, right. So it's very symmetrical. A lot of the older cymbals developed from a diatonic tuning, like just for one scale. And if you wanted to have other notes, you had to add some strings and bridges at the top. And it's like you'd go C and then C sharp up here. That's the way Hungarian ones are.
Yeah.
One interesting aspect of this particular instrument was that the Hungarians had a tuning that's called the Zsidó tuning, Zsidó Stimmung, which is where the right and the left are reversed, and they call it the Jewish tuning.
Because it's crooked.
Either because it's crooked or because Hebrew writing goes from right to left. We don't know. Nobody could ever answer that question for me when I was doing field work among cymbal makers. Why they called it the Zsidó Stimmung. They just said, well, it was crazy, and one said, well, it's because of the Hebrew writing, of course. So it's interesting how that we get these kind of terms like the Jew's harp, the Jewish lira, and the Jewish tuning.
Yeah, so I'm going to just respond to one question. Someone was asking where you are, and you are in Berkeley, California. And so it's good to have you here from Berkeley, and we'd love to finish with one more tune.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we don't have very much time. We have like
Yeah.
What do you want to play?
I don't know. You got to go quick.
Let's do the Orphan Runaway.
Okay.
You play that. Okay.
Okay.
Ready? All right.
Yay, thank you so
Early
much.
for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So great to start with a concert in the morning and to see you and to talk with you. We didn't get to all the questions, but I'm going to put my email in the chat right now if people want to follow up with questions.
Yeah, we'd be happy to answer.
And also, Cookie offered to answer questions. So Eli, if you don't mind putting Cookie Segelstein's email in the chat as well, that would be wonderful.
Great.
So I'm going to say thank you again, and it was beautiful, so much fun.
And Dan and Yonatan, thank you so much.
And we'll turn it over to Eli for a few final announcements.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much, Josh and Cookie, for that wonderful music and conversation, and Yonatan for guiding us through everything. A few quick final comments before we bring this morning's festivities to a close. First, some additional words of thanks, again, to the College of Music and the Roser Visiting Artist Program, to the Office of Outreach and Engagement, especially Lisa Hope Schwartz, and to all of our community partners in the Peak to Peak series, whom I mentioned earlier, to Veretski Pass for sharing that wonderful music that we heard at the beginning of the program when the slide was up, to the David Schneer Fund for Community Programming, Public Scholarship, and the Arts, and to my colleague Maggie Rosenau in Jewish Studies, to our amazing tech wizard Dan Shostad, and of course, again, to Josh, Cookie, and Yonatan for this incredible music and learning. So that's sort of bucket of closing remarks one. Bucket of closing remarks two is some announcements about upcoming programming. This is our second program in our Peak to Peak series this fall. We're going to have a third and final program in that series on December 2nd. This is going to be focused on North African and Middle Eastern Jewish poetic music. This event will take place in the evening of December 2nd. You can see some information available on your screen right now. Publicity about that will go out shortly. And in the spring, we're going to host a variety of additional events in the program in Jewish Studies, our annual Holocaust Remembrance Day program on art and political dissent during the Holocaust, our annual Bender Scholar Visit looking at angels and demons in ancient Judaism and Christianity, and much more. All of our fall programs have been online, but we're hoping, public health conditions permitting, to return to in-person programming in the spring with a streaming option as well. Stay tuned for more details about that coming very shortly. And the final comment I want to offer as I bring this morning to a close, beyond thanking everyone who made this possible, kind of behind the scenes and beyond announcing our future programs, is I just want to thank all of you. For so many of us, I know for me, but I think not just for me, the pandemic has been a time when human connections, human relationships are hard to come by. And against that backdrop, I'm so grateful what it has meant and what it continues to mean to be part of this type of community, a space where individuals from diverse backgrounds can join together to think, learn, and grow with one another. So with that, I'll thank you again for joining us today and say that I look forward to seeing you at future programs.